Israel Houghton wrote a song called The Power of One. He recorded it, I heard it, and ever since I've wanted that song, to sing that song, not me, but together with the musicians of the church, and to present that song and its message on graduation Sunday to graduating seniors. So here's what Brian Neighbors, who sang that song, here are the words that he sang. What if it all depended on me to change the world? That's right, change the world. What if my only responsibility was to change the world? Let me be the one to start a revolution. Let me sing my song to the people of the world. It all begins with one, the power of one, joining the hundreds of millions of people believing in one, the power of one. Don't hang around, stand up, or sit down and believe we can change the world together. We can change the world together. Well, the power of one, joined together with hundreds of millions of people believing in one. Is on my mind as I strolled through the signs of all of the graduates of Lexington High School in the center of Lexington, Ohio, particularly thinking of Luke Reese and Andrew Hathaway, but also of others who have completed academic degree programs, professional degree programs, who are connected to this wonderful community of people here at Church of the Cross, celebrating the power of one. There's an old American proverb. It takes a carpenter to build a barn, but any jackass can kick one down. One of the philosophers in 5th century BC, Greece, once said that the opposite of wisdom is not stupidity, but knowing it all. Hey, there's a lot of voices out there these days. You hear that, I hear that. Some may say in a despairing sort of hand-wringing way, oh, if only there was the voice of wisdom, that we could follow it. But there's really no lack of wisdom, and there's also no lack of folly. The challenge is sorting and sifting and filtering to determine what is my signal and what is what I will call the noise. There's the mask debate, the race debate, how social to be in COVID-19 times, what's the upcoming school year going to look like. There's no shortage of information. 2020 will be remembered for many things. The year of your graduation, Luke and Andrew, but also perhaps it will be remembered as the year of a lot of noise. When I was a youth pastor, I tried an experiment with a group of middle school kids that I recalled from my middle years in school. And that was a little experiment in communication. I took 3 kids and I asked for volunteers, 3 volunteered. And I said, you're going to give a little 2-minute speech. And one who volunteered quick was Joy, a very talkative girl. She's sometimes was known as Motor Mouth. She's now my dentist in Gahanna, Ohio, but that's beside the point. The other one was Mike, and I knew he was always good to talk about sports. And then the third one, a little reticent, was Rob, and Rob was a good speaker, and I know he would give a talk, probably about Boy Scouts. And I said, just as they were poised to kind of begin their speech, the sort of twist in this is that you're all going to give this 2-minute speech at the same time. So after kind of soaking that in, I said, okay, let's begin now. And the three of them launched into their speeches. They did a great job. They all three were animated, and they talked, and the people in the audience, the middle school kids, were listening and kind of like staggered and trying to turn to figure out which one to listen to. And at the end of it all, basically, summing it up, was a lot of confusion. And nobody could quite piece together any one of those messages. And the kids cited confusion and partial stories. I guess the learning from that is that in life there will always be many voices crying out for attention. And we'll have to make some choices. And we're also going to have a lot of grace for ourselves, knowing that we all have a tendency towards folly. And yet we also celebrate the progress that you have made on this life journey, on this path to wisdom. A couple of Bible stories that, as you proceeded through life in Church of the Cross or other churches that you may have missed, I'd like to lift up in this moment of the message for this service today. One is about David, and it's recorded in 2 Samuel. It's described that David was a great king. In fact, he was the one. He was the son of Jesse. He was the anointed one of God. He was the favorite, strong one of Israel. And the Spirit of the Lord speaks through David, says Israel, throughout its history. His word is upon his tongue, God's word. And David rules justly over his people, ruling in the fear of God. So David at one point was with his army encamped. And he had three in particular. They were actually called in the Old Testament the Three, capital T, 3. And they were warriors who were always by David's side. And to cut this kind of short, I won't go into each of the attributes of the warriors, but in chapter 23 of 2 Samuel, they're described for their heroic traits, the three. At one point, David leisurely said, "Oh, I thirst." And I know that the Philistine army is encamped at Bethlehem, but if I could just drink from the well in Bethlehem near to the encampment of the Philistines, it would slake my thirst. The three heard it, and they went. They snuck through the lines of the Philistines, and they actually came back to David with the water. But David said, "I will not drink of this." He received the water, and he poured it out to the Lord. And he said, "The Lord forbid that I should do this. Can I drink the blood of the men who went at their risk, the risk of their lives?" And therefore, he would not drink it. The risk to their lives. David not wanting to receive that privilege of quenching his thirst when all of his men were thirsty. "So far be it from me," says David, "that I should be the beneficiary at the risk of the blood of these brave ones." Any jackass could have drunk the water, but it took a carpenter, a builder of unity, a builder of sound purpose, a recognizer of all of the gifts and the resources that go into making and empowering the one. David is saying there's much more to life than these moments of water quenching. I've received and I understand that this is a gift. And so I'm going to take to myself a benefit that is greater even than the physical benefit and take and offer this back as a sacrifice, knowing in this logic of maybe an older time, an older world, that human sacrifices for the benefit of us, the people, if they're acknowledged, if we see them, they're sacred. So let's come back in a moment and take a look at this second Old Testament story.